Hello and welcome to this meeting of the Planning and Development Council of the Town of Oakville. Madam Clerk, as I understand it, we have no regrets tonight. Councilor, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Madam Clerk, I see none. Before we turn to some routine matters, the confirmation of minutes and all, as a kindness to the public so they know, I'm going to give the floor to Councilor Haslet-Deal and Councilor Giddings to move a motion to waive the procedure bylaw to facilitate some delegates who might not have registered exactly on time. Councilor?
Mayor Burton, Councillor Giddings and I would like to ask Council to waive the procedure bylaw so that Rick Snidel, Ian Renshaw, George Niblock, and Jim Goodfellow can speak in order on item 8.2, I believe it is tonight. 8.1.
All right, thank you for that. Is there any objection, Council? There being no objection, that carries, and thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much, sir.
And I hope that puts at ease any anxiety that our delegates had about the matter. So, Council, you have the the minutes of the previous Planning and Development Council meeting. Do you have any corrections, or failing that, do you have a motion to approve? Councilor Knoll and Councilor Shia, thank you. Any objection? There being none, they're approved. We also have the advisory committee minutes to approve and receive. We're going to approve a couple of recommendations and receive the rest, and that'll take a mover and seconder as well. Councilor Longo and Councilor Chisholm, thank you. Any objection? There being none, that's carried as well. That brings us to the recommendation report for the draft plan of condominium for 3008 William Cutmore Boulevard. This is a recommendation report. Staff are available if there are questions, but I'd be happy to look for a motion. Councilor Adams and a seconder. Councilor Shia, thank you. Any objection? There being none, that is adopted. Now the next item is the public hearing item for the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision applications by Infrastructure Ontario for a health science complex near our wonderful hospital. And this is not a decision session. This is a presentation by the applicant or on behalf of the applicant to elicit from council and the public any concerns or questions that they want staff to cover in an eventual recommendation report that'll come another time. So with that, Madam Clerk, would you call the delegation?
We have Valerie Sokolenko.
Welcome, Ms. Sokolenko. We are looking forward to your presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Burton, members of council, and members of the public. My name is Valeria Sokolenko. I am an associate with Sejeki Planning, and I'm here speaking on behalf of Infrastructure Ontario. So the application before you tonight is an official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan of subdivision application for a science facility complex on the site. As the site is currently vacant, there is no municipal address, but the property can be described legally as parts of lots 26 and 27, concession 1 north of Dundas Street, and forms part of the provincially owned Oakville Land Assembly located in North Oakville. The site, which is outlined in red on this map here, is located in Ward 7. It is situated on the northwest corner of William Halton Parkway and 3rd Line. It is just west of the Aaron Oak Kids Center for Treatment and Development and immediately north of the Oakville Trafalgar Memorial Hospital. Fittingly, it is located within the hospital district, which is a strategic growth area identified in the Livable Oakville Plan, which is outlined in white. So the entire site is approximately 20 acres in size. However, only approximately 7.5 acres is proposed for development currently. I will get into the details of the official plan and zoning amendments being requested shortly, but a draft plan of subdivision application is required to break up the property into 3 lots, 2 development properties, the eastern and western lots shown here, as well as a future road that will connect Glenorchy Road to William Halton Parkway West. This road will be constructed by Infrastructure Ontario and will be conveyed to the town. Although the eventual plan is to construct the full extent of the road from Glenorchy Road to William Halton Parkway, only that portion of the road required to service the eastern lot is proposed to be constructed at this time, with the remainder of the road to be constructed as part of the future development of the western lot. In the interim, a turning circle is proposed just west of the eastern lot, which is a similar condition to what currently exists at the north end of Glenorchy Road. So the proposal itself is for a new science facility complex. This is for the Ministry of Environment, Conservation, and Parks, as well as the Ministry of Labor, kind of Immigration, Training, and Skills Development. The new provincially owned complex will bring these ministries' kind of existing operations into a single modern science and laboratory facility. The proposed building includes adaptable office, laboratory, and science workshop spaces, which will support the ministry's delivery of environmental laboratory services, monitoring and sampling, data management, as well as regulatory enforcement functions. The project is being delivered as a DBFM model, or a design, build, finance, maintain model, meaning a private sector partner will be brought on to design, construct, finance, and maintain the project over the next 20 to 30 years, while Infrastructure Ontario retains ownership. Currently, that private partner has not been selected, meaning the official plan and zoning approvals being sought are based off of existing test fit drawings, which is what is shown on the screen currently. The existing test fit drawings show a 4-story building with parking for fleet vehicles, including boats and monitoring equipment within a secure compound shown on the west side of the property, as well as 250 spaces for staff parking. Additionally, two entrances are contemplated on the Glenorchy Road extension, one for service vehicles and one for staff. Additionally, a right-in, right-out entrance is considered for the William Halton Parkway. At a future date, or kind of once the private sector partner is brought on, they will be in charge of developing kind of more detailed architectural drawings for the facility, meaning the final design of the building will likely change compared to what is shown here today, either in terms of building height or site layout. However, the nature and scale of the proposed development will remain the same, and this is a similar process to how the hospital facility was itself delivered. So as previously mentioned, the site is located within the hospital district, which is a strategic growth area identified in the Livable Oakville plan. The policies for the hospital district intend for this area to develop as a predominantly employment-focused, mixed-use community surrounding and anchored by the Trafalgar Memorial Hospital. Within the hospital district itself, the site is designated urban core, which permits mixed-use buildings between 6 and 12 stories tall. The urban core designation, as applied elsewhere in the town, typically is intended for uses such as, retail, commercial, office, kind of residential uses. Within the hospital district itself, however, additional permissions that are would otherwise be limited to the institutional designation are permitted here as well, including government facilities. So the proposed facility is generally in keeping with the Livable Oakville plan policies. However, since the final design of the building could be anywhere between 4 and 8 stories tall, an official plan amendment is required to reduce the minimum height requirement from 6 stories to 4 stories, as well as permit the outside storage of vehicles and monitoring equipment on site. Additionally, the official plan amendment includes some site-specific urban design guidelines with the intent of kind of directing the final design of the facility so that it is in keeping with the kind of more urban vision set out for the area in the plan. So high level, the kind of design principles that the guidelines speak to include the primacy of William Halton Parkway, pedestrian connections throughout the area, as well as kind of generally improving the pedestrian-oriented environment around the facility and the area more generally. Zoning Bylaw 2009-189, which applies to this site, is slightly out of date with the Livable Oakville policies. So it identifies the site as institutional with a maximum height of 16 meters, which roughly translates to 4 stories. So this is lower than the minimum height of 6 stories required in the Livable Oakville plan. The site is additionally subject to a holding provision, which identifies technical studies that need to be completed prior to any development on the site, just to make sure that that development is supported by the required servicing and planning frameworks. So as such, the zoning bylaw amendment seeks to permit the science facility complex and associated outside storage. It seeks to increase the maximum height permission to 8 stories, as well as reduce the parking requirement so that it's more in line with the operations of this type of facility. And a number of technical studies have been submitted to satisfy the requirements of the Holden provision, which is also proposed to be lifted as part of the zoning bylaw amendment application. This slide shows the process taken to date. So a pre-application consultation meeting was held in August of 2025 with ongoing conversations with staff up to submission of the application in April 2026. We did host a public information meeting on March 5th, 2026, with notices shared with property owners located within 120 meters of the site. There were no attendees at the public information meeting, but we are here and kind of taking note of any comments we received tonight. So in conclusion, the proposed development application will enable MECP and its partners to deliver environmental and public health testing results to support government facilities. It will introduce 400 jobs to the hospital district, an employment-focused strategic growth area. It will bring existing zoning permissions more in line with the Livable Oakville plan policies. And finally, the applications will provide a framework for the future design of the building that is compatible with the planned urban context for the area. Thank you, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Well, that's kind of you because there are quite a few, and we'll start off with Councillor Shia, who represents that area.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for the presentation. So I have a question for staff. So the report notes that the future proposed facility does include environmental and the radiological lab service. And what technical studies or third-party agents review will staff rely on to ensure there are no safety, environmental, noise, or compatibility impact on nearby users, include the hospital, Erin Oak Kids, and Galanoki Conservation?
Through you, Mayor Burton, thank you for that question. So through the application, various studies are required to be submitted, including land use compatibility. And through that, at the town, we engage with a peer reviewer to appropriately review our land use compatibility studies that are required. And so through this process, that's the way that we could ensure that there's no negative impacts or making sure that we're following any mitigation measures that would be required for the proximity to those other uses.
Okay, so will be the future recommendation report that clarify those emergency management, the public safety considerations?
Through you, Mayor Burton, I'll add it to the list of matters to be considered that we review those safety measures that you're concerned about.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that brings us to Councillor Elgar.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Burton, thank you for the presentation. And a few of these questions may be more directed to staff also. And it's related to, I got a few. One of them is the holding provision H22 removal. And that was specifically put on to require that updated studies be completed before the eastern parcel develops. Have those studies been completed at this point? Or are they still under review?
Through you, Mayor Burton, and through this process, those studies have been submitted and they're currently under review. So as part of a recommendation to lift that holding provision, staff would have to be satisfied that all requirements of the holding provision have been met, which includes the review of these studies and acceptance.
Which means completed. Like when it comes back, will they be completed or just reviewed?
Oh, so then through you, Mayor Burton, the idea is that they would be fully complete, vetted, and accepted by staff.
I thank you. I wanted to hear, just to be reviewed doesn't mean anything to me. It means completed to your satisfaction. On the financial and the staff report, there's none. I guess I'm a little concerned when I see that jump out, and I think of extension of the Glenarchy Road. So I'm curious, when you say financial none, who's paying for that road? I think I heard that I heard the applicant saying about it, but who will be paying? Is that a town cost? Is that an IO cost? Because don't forget, IO, I know how it works. When you have the province involved in things, quite often it goes back to the taxpayer. Has that been determined?
Through you, Mayor Burton, that actually has been determined, and IO will be responsible for the construction of the road. We've had previous agreements through previous review of the site that have arranged for that. And I can, through the recommendation, I'll provide a bit of more information about that and make sure that it's clear to the public and to council.
I thank you. Thanks very much. The only other thing then is the outside storage allowance. Will it meet the site-specific urban design guidelines we have, or are they asking for variation?
Through you, Mayor Burton, that is something that will have to be reviewed and determined whether it is appropriate to allow for the outside storage that's being requested. And if there are any urban design considerations through that permittance, it would be before council to determine whether that's appropriate. So that's currently under review.
Conditions. I thank you for that. I think I like what I'm reading here. I think it's the right place. Now, the only other thing is, I think the applicant said they give owners within 120 meters. I thought I read it was 240 meters in the Planning Act. So what is the minimum for notifying people? Is it 120 or is it 240 meters?
Through you, Mayor Burton, Gabe Charles, our director, is going to respond to that.
Thank you, Mayor Burton, and through you to the councillor. Councillor, the minimum requirement in the Planning Act is 120 meters. It's council's policy that we double that, and so we do 240 meters when we do notice of public meeting.
So in this application, we actually did the 240 meters.
Correct.
I appreciate that, and I thank you. And I realize it does not impact any residential. That's why absolutely no one showed up at the meeting. So thank you very much. And at the appropriate time, I'd be willing to move the recommendation myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll take that as moved. Can I look for a second? Councillor Shia, thank you. Councillor Nanda, Ms. The councillor that's going to question now also represents the area, Councillor Nanda.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Burton. Thank you so much for the presentation. I think this is a question maybe for staff. Since IO is going to be finalizing the building process through procurement process, is staff going to be a part of the process for the site plan as well, or?
Through you, Mayor Burton, that's correct. Staff will have to review the site plan at the time that application is put forward. And the applicant has also included the urban design criteria to help guide that process as well. Okay. And through our recommendation, we'll confirm whether any additional items should be added to help guide to ensure that we're satisfied with what will come out of this approval if it were to be recommended.
Okay. Do you know if there's going to be any sustainability features that are going to be incorporated into this project?
I think that's still, through you, Mr. Mayor. I think that's still to be determined. We kind of have put the question to Infrastructure Ontario to consider as part of their sustainability or the final design of the building, but that is an ongoing conversation.
Okay. And then has there been a transportation analysis been completed yet to see the impacts on the surrounding roads, William Halton, Glen Orkey Road, Hospital Gate?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, a transportation impact study has been prepared and submitted and is going to be reviewed by staff as part of this application.
Okay, perfect. And then they asked about the outdoor storage, and you said it's going to be screened from public view. Do you know how, or just?
So it could be done through a variety of ways. The outside storage, again, is purely limited to boats and kind of monitoring equipment. But yes, it would be within a secured compound. It may be, I believe it is going to be a wall, but I would have to confirm with IO if additional details on the design of that wall have been determined.
Okay, and then just lastly, do you know what might be proposed on the western portion of the block?
That has not been determined yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks for the presentation. I'm going to kind of build on what Councillor Nanda was asking on the sustainability side. I think this is an excellent project. I think it looks at the kind of health tech science node that around the hospital. So would you take back as considerations things like geothermal heating and cooling, district energy, as well as building materials that are environmentally friendly above the current building code? So I'd like to kind of list those as things to consider as you're going to market to choose who your partner is.
Yes, we can definitely take that back to discuss with Infrastructure Ontario.
Perfect. Thank you.
File. Well then, thank you very much for the presentation. Council, we need a mover and seconder to receive the presentation and to direct staff to consider the comments provided by council. Councillor Elgar, that's right. Thank you both. Any objection? There being none, that's carried. Let's move to 7.2. 7.2 is the public meeting and recommendation report for the zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision from Home Development Limited. Rob Thun is available, and there he is, and he has a presentation, I'm told.
Good evening, Mayor Burton and members of council. This is the second meeting, statutory meeting, which includes a recommendation on a zoning bylaw amendment and a draft plan of subdivision application submitted by Hume Development Limited to facilitate development of lands for employment purposes. The second meeting is necessary due to revisions to the limits of the draft plan of subdivision, including modifications to the stormwater management pond block, and also the corresponding changes to the applicant's proposed zoning amendment. The first statutory meeting was held on May 4th, 2026. No members of the public were in attendance or spoke. No written comments were submitted for that meeting. Next slide, please. On the screen before council is an air photo which identifies the site. The site is in black. It is municipally known as 145 Burnham Thorpe Road West. That is the frontage. The entire property goes all the way to the 407, but we're only dealing with the area that is in black. It's principally used for agricultural purposes. A portion of the site is being used as a temporary stormwater management pond, and you can see that sort of in the lower left-hand corner of the bottom area, right in this location here. And that stormwater management pond is for drainage related to William Halton Parkway. The application before you, as I'd mentioned, goes all the way up to the 407, but we're only dealing with the area in black. Those other areas will be a future application. They are not part of this application. From a contextual point of view, I've highlighted several features around the subject property. The first being the residential subdivisions of Docasa and Star Oak. They are south of Burnhamthorpe Road. They are approximately at their closest from the future modular plant, which is on block 1, which is the northerly block, approximately 380 meters to the closest residential. The Eno property is draft plan approved already. The zoning for several of the blocks along William Halton Parkway are still to come to council, but no time frame of that has been set. And those are located in the Neagawa urban core. There was a comment received, which is in the council's package on July 1st, and it related to the proximity of the high school in relation to employment. As you can see from the air photo itself, the high school located at the corner of 6th and Burnhamthorpe Road West is bisected from the subject property that we're dealing with tonight by the town's natural heritage system. We own those properties already. So to the north of the high school is a linkage that connects the one core that I'm showing as town NHS to another core on the east side of 6th line. There is a linkage going southward where my cursor is to connect up the one core to the other core feature that is part of the natural heritage system in town ownership, and also the stormwater management pond just to the left or to the right of that and to the west of the high school site is also in town ownership. I had mentioned previously that this is the second meeting and it was partly in relation to a revision of the draft plan. So what you have on the screen before you right now on the left is the original draft plan of subdivision, and on the right is the subdivision before council tonight. That draft plan of subdivision, overall area has slightly increased from 11.9 hectares to 12.14. Revisions to the shape of block 1, which is where the modular assembly plant is being proposed, has increased from 4.88 to 4.96. As I'd mentioned, the stormwater management pond in blue has slightly changed in size also from 2.76 to 2.94, but it also extends a slightly further south, so closer to Burnhamthorpe Road. With all this in mind, the shift of Street A has moved slightly to accommodate a better access for the modular assembly plant on block 1 to the north. So in essence, your worship, the structural elements of the draft plan still remain the same as originally. 3 employment blocks, those are blocks 1, 2, and 3 in yellow. A stormwater management pond, block 4 in blue. 1 natural heritage system, block 5, related to the addition, that would be additional to the NHS to the east of that. There are 2 open space blocks shown as blocks 5 and 6, and there's the 22-meter wide road. The applicant's revised draft plan of subdivision can be fully seen on Appendix B. And in Appendix D, our staff's proposed consolidated conditions of draft approval, which contain conditions from the various internal departments and external agencies. From a policy review perspective on the screen, those are the policy documents that were reviewed in preparing for this recommendation meeting, and they are captured in the policy analysis section starting on page 7 of the staff report. As I'd mentioned, staff have considered all these provincial, regional, and town documents. We are satisfied that the proposed development is consistent with the provincial planning statement, conforms to the Halton official plan, has regards for matters of provincial interest, such as the creation of employment and the protection of the natural heritage system. As outlined in the memo that is before council right now, the town was recently advised that the Parkway Belt West Plan and the MZO were revoked by the province effective July 1st. So the memo before you has a revised zoning bylaw and a revised recommendation. The application also reflects the town's urban structure, which is the left image. In blue is employment lands, and also conforms to the principles and the overall policy directions of the North Oakville East Secondary Plan, which is the right image and was established back in 2008 as part of the overall North Oakville East process. So in essence, employment development is being proposed for these lands. Next slide. The applicant's corresponding zoning bylaw amendment that they propose is found in Appendix A. So your left image here reflects what the existing zoning is, that is FD, future development. The right image is the zoning bylaw amendment that was captured in the staff report. And the memo before council now has the holding provisions, because of the Parkway Belt being revoked, removed. So the H75 symbol on the mapping in the legend and in the text is removed from the proposed zoning before council tonight. This amendment facilitates development of employment, establishes a stormwater management pond, a public road, and also, which has been critical since the beginning of the North Oakville East exercise, protection of the natural heritage system. In particular, Block 1, which is the employment block to the north, it is zoned LE with a special provision 147. Together with 147, it limits the permitted uses to light industrial uses to befit what is being proposed on the site right now. Ancillary uses are included, including a general office and outside storage. But with regards to the outside storage, we've included additional regulations related to its minimum distance away from William Halton Parkway, being 100 meters, and the application of Section 710.4 from the general employment zone related to the outside storage. And that relates to screening, setbacks, landscape setbacks, and whatnot. So those would still apply. Blocks 2 and 3 are the properties or the blocks to the south of William Halton Parkway. They are zoned LE also, have a special provision 148 that applies to them, also for light industrial operations. And an ancillary use would be the general office. As mentioned, the original on the screen, there was the holding provision 75. That is no longer being considered. Block 4, which is a stormwater management pond, will be zoned stormwater management facility. Blocks 5 and 6 and 7, the natural heritage and open space blocks created in the draft plan, those will be NHS and will be all included into the town's system as part of this process. Also, as a housekeeping matter, the expired temporary use provision T6 FD, which was located in this location right here at the very corner of Burnhamthorpe and Street, the proposed Street A, was removed. It was expired as of early this year, and it was taken off of the zoning schedule. From the comments that were received on May 4th, page 17 of the staff report deals with those comments that were received and how they were addressed. But from council's perspective, I wanted to just raise the 3 that are on the screen right now. Those being the context and transition to adjacent properties and built form / integration with adjoining and adjacent properties, transportation, and land use compatibility. So from the first one, the context and transition, the lands to the north of William Halton Parkway that I've shown previously are designated for employment uses. Similarly, the lands south of William Halton Parkway to the east are also employment uses. The lands immediately to the south of the stormwater management pond that's proposed on the site is not part of this application and will be dealt with at a future planning process. But the residents of that area, when they do move in, will have conditions of draft approval related to the acknowledgement of employment uses to the north. There will be warning clauses. There will be a neighborhood information map prepared, so it gives them the information and the context for what's around the area. The modular plant itself is estimated to be about 120 meters from the closest transition area, which is the part that is not before the council tonight. So that is the area south of William Halton Parkway, or south of the stormwater management pond. And the outside storage is approximately 200 meters away from that residential component. From a transportation perspective, town staff heard that there was a concern related to the use of the roads. So a traffic memo was prepared to address the concerns for inbound and outbound trucks associated with the operation of Block 1. The required details of the memo resulted in discussions from the Transportation Department with the applicant's transportation consultant. The matters included the truck trip distribution, the truck routing, and oversized vehicles. The inbound and outbound trucks will principally use Highway 407 and regional roads. Those are being William Halton Parkway, the Niagawa, Dundas Street, Trafalgar Road, as seen on the slide before you. The intention of the applicant is not to use the local roads. If absolutely, as much as possible, but if absolutely necessary, they will work with staff to get permits. But it is not the intent to use local roads. And as you can see on the screen here, the image that was prepared by the transportation consultant for the applicant, you can see in red where Mattamy land holdings are, and they are accessed by the regional road systems, be it Halton or William Halton Parkway, or Dundas Street, or Trafalgar Road. So from transportation staff's review of the submitted memo, including this map that is before council tonight, and also included as Appendix E in the staff report, no concerns were raised. The applicant's consultant, and together with transportation staff, are also available to answer any questions related to the memo. The last one is the land use compatibility. With regards to the modular plant, if I can just go back to the nope. I'll use the zoning schedule here for edification. The modular plan, as I mentioned, is on Block 1, so that's the LE 147 parcel of land. The operation of that building is all contained within the building. So the unloading and the loading of the trucks are behind the building itself, so on the north side, furthest away from the residents. The outside storage is even further back from that, behind the building. Staff, as I had mentioned, staff included a 100-meter setback and minimum landscape strip and screening regulations into the zoning bylaw. And the building itself will act as a noise barrier. The size of the building, the loading doors, the unloading doors are all in behind. The noise will be generated back there, will be blocked by the building. Similarly, the outside storage is behind the building. So we don't anticipate any land use compatibility issues related to the operation of the modular assembly plant. With regards to blocks 2 and 3, which are on the south side of William Halton Parkway, that is the LE 148 properties, the actual uses haven't been determined to date. However, they will, as part of the future development, site plan requirements will need to submit a land use compatibility review. So, Your Worship, in conclusion, and members of council, staff have put forward a recommendation before council in the memo. The revised recommendation includes a revision to condition 2, and the words "as revised" are included, and I'll read the entire condition. That bylaw 2026-083, an amendment to the zoning bylaw 2009-189, as amended, as revised with your memo, be approved or be passed. So with that in mind, Your Worship and members of council, thank you very much. The recommendation is before council for consideration.
Thank you. Councillor Shia and Councillor Nanda are up first with questions for you, Mr. Thun.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Rob. I just want to make sure, because this facility will have a daily from the report, 10 inbound and 20 outbound truck activity includes the oversized load. So can you confirm that how truck routing oversized load permit and enforcement will be managed to ensure trucks stay on the regional road and do not impact the future residential areas south of Bernardsville? In other words, so will truck routing condition will be secured through the site plan?
Through you, Your Worship, the use of regional roads, they will need permits from Halton Region. Similarly, if for some reason absolutely necessary they use a local road, they are not intending to do that, a permit will also be required from the town. So both of those agencies will have their hand in how the trucks are moved. That is provided that if there's an oversized load or there's an issue with it and a permit is necessary, they will acquire those permits.
Okay, so how we make sure those trucks like stay on the property road, not go to the local road?
Through Your Worship, we will put conditions of approval into the site plan agreement that condition will not be required. They will use the regional roads.
Okay. Okay. So there's any future residence land close to this site?
As I mentioned, the closest draft approved subdivision is the Eno and Star Oak subdivisions. I've measured it just as late as this afternoon, and they are roughly 380, 370 meters away from the modular plant.
Okay. So in the future, can staff so ensure those future residents will clearly informed about nearby employer new uses like truck activity, outdoor storage, and the potential industry operation before the home and purchasing or occupied?
Through Your Worship, the Star Oak and the Docasa subdivisions have all been registered. Units have been sold. They will be constructed in the near future. Okay. With regards to the people who will move eventually into the area south of the stormwater management pond, as I mentioned, there will be conditions of approval there. There will be warning clauses. There will be the neighborhood information map. We will do everything possible to educate those people coming in of the employment uses closer to them than the people south of Burnham Thorpe Road.
Okay, I understand. Thank you very much.
Councillor Nanda.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Burton. Thank you, Rob, for the presentation. Just continuing along those lines, just for perspective for the public, are we saying William Halton is similar to what Dundas would be now, and what's abutting Dundas with truck traffic, which is mostly condominiums?
Through Your Worship, to Councillor Nanda, Dundas Street, William Halton Parkway, Niagawa, and Trafalgar Road are all regional roads. Okay, they have varying widths. William Halton Parkway is 35 meters wide. It has a capacity of 36,000 cars and trucks per day. Okay. So it does have the ability to handle those trucks. Similar to Dundas Street, similar to Trafalgar, similar to Niagawa.
Okay, and just through the Niagawa Urban Core, we know that what's going to be abutting William Halton would eventually also be condos. They're not low-rise buildings that would be abutting it.
That is correct.
Yeah, and so through that, we could keep it out of local traffic. And then the permitted ones with the oversized load, we know they'll be mostly during the nighttime coming out?
Through Your Worship, that is a question you should be asking Mattamy and Stelumar. They have not provided that information to date.
Okay, so if we can get information of how they expect 5 to 10 trucks of supplies and material to come in, probably during the day, and when is it expected that these overload would be coming out, if that would be any kind of distraction to nearby residents?
Through Your Worship, to Councillor Nanda, we do have their consultant and Stelumar here. That would be a good question to ask
Okay.
them.
Mayor, councilors, nice to meet you. Brian Martin from Stelliumar. To answer your question, the definition of an overdimensional load is very prescribed, both at the Ministry of Transportation Ontario level, as well as the municipal level, including the town of Oakville and adjacent regions. Any permitted load over 9.5 feet wide is daytime shipping only.
Okay. So it's so that it doesn't disturb residents at nighttime to have it go during the day?
Again, any overdimensional load at 9.5 feet wide requiring a overdimensional width permit is daytime shipping only, and we will follow those regulations to the letter.
Okay, and to my colleague's questions earlier, would you be able to put in your draft plan, site plan, that only regional roads will ever be used to bring in supplies? And of course, the overload could only really go on regional roads, but to even bring in supplies, that local roads will not be used.
Absolutely, there's no reason for us to be on local, non-regional roads for common business. I do want to make the point, though, is that modular homes, whether they meet the specifications of a normal load or they require overdimensional permitting, will be required to be transported to subdivision locations, which would require Oakville streets as well as adjacent municipalities as well.
And through permits, of course.
Through permit, yes.
Permits.
Of course. Okay, thank you. And then I had a question on our employment area review, OPA 339. Will that affect this plan in any way because it hasn't yet been passed?
Through your worship to Councilor Nanda, while the employment area review is ongoing, it was referred back to staff.
Yes.
So the premise of the recommendation and the analysis was taken through the North Oakville East Secondary Plan. So it's a policy already established through council and the approval. So that was my policy guidance that I was using. I was not using the EAR.
Okay. Okay. And then for the D6 compatibility, which we were saying blocks 2 and 3 sit about 100 meters from there, are we going to ensure that D6 guidelines and compatibility are used, enforced when we're building those out adjacent to the residential?
Through your worship to Councilor Nanda, those 2 blocks require site plan approval. As part of the pre-consultation meeting, we will be requiring a land use compatibility review of whatever the actual use is being proposed on the site. If there are issues related to noise, vibration, odors, whatnot, they will have to be addressed at that time.
Okay.
So we will be looking at the land use compatibility of those 2 blocks.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you.
All right, that brings us to Councillor Elgar.
Thank you, Mayor Burton. Just on the financial section, section B, financial states only the DCs apply and the parkland dedication is satisfied based on the developers in good standing with the North Oakville East Developer Group. What specific instruments do we have to ensure that it actually binds the parkland cost sharing obligations prior to registration, Rob?
Through your worship to Councillor Elgar, as a typical requirement of draft plans of subdivision, we require that the applicant be in good standing with the landowners group. Part of that standing in landowners group is also the master parkland agreement that the town has with the development industry in North Oakville. So as part of that submission, they have to submit a letter from the trustee that says they are in good standing and part of the group. As a condition of final registration, we need a letter that they are still in good standing and part of the group. So the parkland contributions were already established as part of the establishment of the North Oakville East Secondary Plan process. We want to make sure that they are part of that and they provide the ability to achieve our parkland needs.
So we've covered ourselves on that very well then. I appreciate that. I thank you. Thanks very much. That's my only question. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any members of the public with any comments for council on this matter? I'll restrict it to table and look for a motion. Councillor Grant and Councillor Nanda, thank you. Any objection? There being none, that is carried. Thank you, everybody. That brings us to 7.3, the public meeting and recommendation report for the town-initiated plan amendment, official plan amendment, and zoning bylaw amendment. Jeff Adma is here with a presentation, and we look forward to this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. So as mentioned, this is a town-initiated official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment for the Dundas Urban Core. So let me start with the general purpose of the official plan amendment and the accompanying zoning bylaw amendment that are being proposed. The proposed amendments are primarily about two things: supporting bus rapid transit along Dundas Street and clarifying a policy first introduced through Official Plan Amendment 321. I think it's important to stress that these amendments do not change where growth is being planned. They simply clarify the form that growth should take adjacent to the Dundas Bus Rapid Transit Corridor in order to implement Council's original OPA 321 vision for a transit-supportive urban core. So this is Schedule A1 from the Livable Oakville Plan, which is the town's urban structure. A part of what Oakville's urban structure does is to direct most new growth to a network of nodes and corridors. This network of nodes and corridors is based on a network of higher order transit, including the Lakeshore West GO line and the planned bus rapid transit along the corridors of Trafalgar Road and Dundas Street. Higher order transit is very important because it supports people living in these nodes and corridors by providing them with another viable transportation choice. The Dundas Urban Core is a part of this network, and it's shown in white here. And it's the area of town to which the amendments being considered tonight would apply. The Dundas Urban Core is located within North Oakville and subject to the North Oakville East Secondary Plan. Again, it's outlined in white on the figure on the left, which is the North Oakville Land Use Plan. The figure on the right is the North Oakville Transportation Plan. This plan shows that both Dundas Street and Trafalgar Road are identified as busway corridors. And you can see that the urban core areas of North Oakville, shown in blue on the left, are intentionally aligned to support these busway corridors. And speaking of transportation, I will add that the town's transportation master plan, which council approved last October, recognizes that Oakville's population is expected to grow significantly by 2051 and beyond. And it emphasizes that addressing congestion requires maximizing the movement of people, not just vehicles, through investments in transit, walking, and cycling. The Dundas Street corridor is central to Oakville's long-term vision for sustainable growth. By prioritizing high-capacity transit and encouraging a shift from private vehicle travel to transit and active transportation, the town can reduce greenhouse gas emissions, improve mobility for a growing population, and support the development of complete transit-supportive communities envisioned in both the Transportation Master Plan and the town's official plan and secondary plan. Within the vision section of the North Oakville East Secondary Plan, Policy 7.2.2 indicates that the design of North Oakville East will generally reflect the transect, a system of classification of human habitats from the most rural, which is reflected in the natural heritage and open space system, to the most urban conditions, which is reflected in urban core areas. The image shown here is a visual representation of the transect system or spectrum. Rural or agricultural areas are depicted on the left, which then progress in increasing intensity to the most urban condition represented by the urban core. In the context of the Dundas urban core specifically, Dundas Street would be located on the transect as shown by the yellow line here. And the proposed amendments relate to the portion of the transect in the red box, the lands directly adjacent to Dundas Street, and not actually in the entire urban core area. So about 10 years ago or so, excuse me, as part of a review of the secondary plan, staff became concerned that the town was not achieving the built form along Dundas Street and Trafalgar Road represented by the area of the transect in this red box, which is adjacent to Trafalgar Road and the Dundas Street corridors. Instead, development applications were proposing a continuation of the lower scale townhouse forms which were already being developed further away from the corridors, and then wanting to continue that lower scale housing form directly adjacent to Trafalgar Road and Dundas. This meant that the town was at risk of not fully achieving the intended built form to support the transit corridors, the part of the transect, again, highlighted in red here. And quite frankly, if we don't achieve this part of the transect, we risk not getting bus rapid transit on these corridors, which then risks even more congestion on our roads. And so this was part of the reason for Official Plan Amendment 321, which was adopted by Council in June of 2018 and came into effect later that year. So OPA 321 applied two different approaches to address this concern along Trafalgar Road and Dundas Street. For Trafalgar Road, OPA 321 created a series of bands across the Trafalgar urban core, which is shown on the left. In the middle band, which extends 100 meters on either side of Trafalgar Road, a minimum building height requirement of 8 stories was introduced. Within the second bands, which is 100 meters to 300 meters away from Trafalgar Road, the minimum building height became 6 stories, and the bands furthest away from Trafalgar Road, the minimum number of stories dropped to 3 stories as a way to transition down to the lower scale neighborhoods further away from Trafalgar Road. The intent was to implement this transect vision by having the highest building heights and the resulting density adjacent to Trafalgar Road in this middle band. For the Dundas urban core, the depth of the Dundas urban core area was not sufficient for this same approach and required a different way to address the building height concern. Townhouse developments of 3 stories and more recently 4 stories were becoming a common built form proposed directly adjacent to Dundas Street. These proposals would not achieve the secondary plan vision directly adjacent to Dundas. So OPA 321 introduced a policy for the Dundas urban core to prohibit standalone townhouses adjacent to Dundas Street as a means to achieve a taller built form adjacent to Dundas Street. So taller built form along the transit corridors was the goal of both of these approaches. It was the intention that OPA 321 would address this concern. However, we again are experiencing pressure to build lower scale housing forms on lands adjacent to Dundas Street, and the policies introduced by OPA 321 are being challenged. And I appreciate that markets fluctuate, and we currently find ourselves in a point in time where there is a downturn in the market for apartment housing. However, the town's official plan and its urban structure are forward-looking and are intended to be forward-looking and plan for growth in the long term. The lands adjacent to Dundas represent an important part of the vision for North Oakville. So yes, providing housing is important, but it's also important to ensure that we support the investments that the town and the province are making in bus rapid transit and achieve the built form that will fully support that transit. So another policy in the secondary plan that speaks to this, the direction of the OPA 321 is policy 7.5.6A of the secondary plan, which says, buildings, structures, and landscaping shall be designed to provide visual interest to pedestrians as well as a sense of enclosure to the street. Generally, heights of buildings shall also be related to road widths to create a more comfortable pedestrian environment. And I emphasize this point so that the wider the road width, the higher the building height. So at its heart, sense of enclosure is ultimately about creating an environment where people want to come to use transit. This means making it a place where pedestrians are comfortable and safe, transit users, let's remember, transit users are pedestrians both before and after they use transit. So it's about providing a mixture of uses in the buildings next to transit, like retail stores, for example. And an important part of creating this comfortable environment are buildings that are tall enough to frame the street. Accessing transit along a street framed by buildings with active street-level retail uses and attractive streetscapes generally feel more inviting, walkable, and safe to pedestrians than in a setting where building forms do not adequately frame the street, which may leave pedestrians feeling exposed and disconnected from surrounding activity. So when discussing this with urban design staff, they indicated that at least a 1-to-3 building height to street ratio width is generally needed to create an adequate sense of enclosure, with a 1-to-1 ratio providing a full sense of enclosure. So on this diagram here, there is a local street shown on the left with a typical width of 17 meters. And on the right is Dundas Street with an approximate width of 50 meters, and sometimes even more. This diagram shows 53. So the gray areas along each of these streets show a 1-to-3 up to 1-to-1 building height to street width ratio range. So in effect, this would be the range of height that would create an adequate sense of enclosure. So you can see on a 17-meter local street on the left, 3- or 4-story townhouse buildings fall within the gray range and are appropriate on a local street. Along Dundas Street, however, they would not be tall enough to achieve the adequate sense of enclosure. So on wider roads such as Dundas, a taller building height would be required to achieve an adequate sense of enclosure and contribute to a safe, walkable, and attractive place next to transit. Since OPA 321 came into effect in 2018, there have been a number of site-specific special provisions along Dundas that have been approved and effectively implement the new OPA 321 policy. The example shown here is from Special Provision 56, and it stipulates that apartments, mixed-use buildings, and commercial buildings shall be the only permitted building types within 50 meters of Dundas Street East. It also says the minimum building height for an apartment or mixed-use building within 50 meters of Dundas Street is 6 stories and 20 meters. The other special provisions indicated on this slide are all at the eastern end of the Dundas urban core, and they contain very similar regulations. These uphold the intent of OPA 321 to not permit standalone townhouses adjacent to Dundas Street. So this brings me to the official plan amendment being put forth tonight. And the language being proposed is very similar to the regulations in the site-specific provisions that I just mentioned, and which are already in effect for the eastern portion of the Dundas urban core. So first, the amendment proposes to replace the policy in the North Oakville East Secondary Plan that standalone townhouses shall not be permitted adjacent to Dundas Street with a positive policy instead of a negative one. Apartment buildings, mixed-use buildings, and commercial buildings shall be the only permitted building types within 50 meters of the Dundas Street right-of-way. The second part of the amendment then adds an extra part to the minimum height policy. A minimum height of 3 stories shall be permitted, and the new part would be, except that a minimum height of 6 stories shall apply to all buildings containing a residential use within 50 meters of the Dundas Street right-of-way. These 2 items constitute the entirety of the official plan amendment. The zoning bylaw amendment being proposed tonight is simply to implement the proposed official plan amendment. The primary change being proposed is to the base Dundas urban core zone. The existing base zone has a minimum height requirement of 2 stories and a maximum of 8 stories, and you can see a snippet of that in the bottom right. The amendment proposes to change this to a minimum of 6 stories within 50 meters of the Dundas Street right-of-way and a minimum of 3 stories for the rest of the Dundas urban core. With respect to building types, the base Dundas urban core zone does not permit any form of townhouse buildings, so there are no changes to the permitted building types that are needed in the base zone. The zoning bylaw amendment is also proposing changes to the performance zones and special provisions that are listed here. These changes would simply maintain consistency with the proposed official plan amendment and the proposed revisions to the base Dundas Urban Core Zone. The details for all of these are provided in the staff report if you're interested. So the proposed amendments would actually only have an impact on a part of the Dundas Urban Core area. This diagram shows the Dundas Urban Core area in red, and the blue band represents the area that is within 50 meters of the Dundas Street right-of-way. And this is the area that would be affected by the proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment. Here's another perspective of that same area. This time, we're looking east along Dundas Street. So on the left is the view from Neagawa Boulevard to Trafalgar Road. On the right is the view from Post Ridge Drive, which is east of Trafalgar Road, up to 9th Line. Again, it's just the area 50 meters from the Dundas Street right-of-way, which is shown in blue on both of these images, that would be affected by the proposed OPA and ZBA. The policies and regulations for the lands beyond the 50 meters would remain as they are today. You can also see in these images the existing developments that already achieve the built form intended in the secondary plan and by these proposed amendments. The proposed amendments would simply ensure that this becomes the minimum standard along Dundas Street to support the Dundas bus rapid transit. One last piece that I hope is helpful to you is this table where I attempt to show generally what has changed from before OPA 321 through OPA 321 and then what's being proposed tonight. So with respect to maximum height, the maximum height was 8 stories prior to OPA 321. OPA 321 maintained that maximum, but introduced consideration for 4 additional stories if your property was adjacent to a stormwater management facility. The proposed amendments tonight would not change that. With respect to minimum height, OPA 321 raised the minimum height from 2 stories to 3 stories. The proposed amendments would maintain that minimum 3 stories, except for lands within 50 meters of Dundas, where the minimum would now be 6 stories. And with respect to land uses adjacent to Dundas Street, the Dundas Urban Core policies permit the full range of office, commercial, including retail and service commercial, health and medical, institutional, and medium and high density uses. OPA 321 maintained this, except that standalone townhouses shall not be permitted adjacent to Dundas Street. The proposed amendment for tonight would simply clarify this policy by turning it into a positive policy to say that apartment buildings, mixed-use buildings, and commercial buildings shall be the only permitted building types within 50 meters of the Dundas Street right-of-way. So that brings me to the recommendation for tonight, which is displayed above, which is for council to pass the proposed official plan amendment and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. And as I said at the start, these amendments are really just about clarifying policy already introduced through official plan amendment 321, but ultimately supporting bus rapid transit along Dundas Street. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Edma, for your presentation. And we have questions. Councillor Shia, Councillor Nanda, and Councillor Amira. Councillor Shia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report proposing a 6 stories minimum within 50 meters of Dundas Street West, so to support a future BRT corridor. So can staff clarify whether this standards is sufficient to meet the region's 160 residents and jobs per hectare target for the Dundas Urban Core, especially since the report noticed that now the corridor is currently tracking close to probably 102 residents and jobs per hectare.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. So the Dundas Urban Core, defined by the boundary that I've shown on the map, that has a requirement in Halton Region's official plan for a minimum of 160 people and jobs per hectare. So that means any development within that area needs to meet that requirement. The analysis that town staff are doing and will hopefully bring forward as we do bring forward a larger part of our official plan review is we're looking at the entire corridor, 400 meters above and 400 meters below, and looking to see where we land within what the province recommends as being the minimum. So within the Dundas urban core boundary itself, yes, we will definitely meet 160 people and jobs per hectare. In order to achieve that along the full corridor, it's important not only to get the density. Being transit supportive is not just about density, it's also about providing the appropriate built form that creates the environment that makes transit viable along that. So the 6 stories would go a long way, the minimum 6 stories, to achieving that built form. And then along with that built form comes the density, which will help us get to the density that we need to really support transit along Dundas.
Okay, thank you. So if this 6 story is not enough to reach the target, what additional tools will we need to through the OPA? Is that means we increase to the 8, to the 10 or higher?
That's something that I think we'll need to look at in our continuing and ongoing official plan review, where we will be looking at North Oakville policies again, or continue to look at them. And should we find that 6 stories, I believe 6 stories is kind of the bare minimum to get us to where we need to be from a built form standpoint. We will also assess the density, which I believe we are achieving within the Dundas urban core, but we will look at whether we're achieving that fully, in the entire band, and we will look at what are the appropriate methods to ensure that we support transit adequately through both the nodes as well as the corridor. Dundas urban core is really about a corridor portion, but we've also got the uptown core, we've got the hospital district, we've got Palermo Village as another node, and as well as the Trafalgar urban core. So we need to look at all of those together to see, okay, are we getting the development that we need to support transit? Dundas urban core is one part of that, but it's not the entire story.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Nando.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Burton. Thank you for the presentation. So just to be clear, the BRT, it's based on density per hectare, not form. So we're doing the form to try to get the density.
So if you read the transit supportive guidelines, it'll talk about the fact that it's not just density, it's also built form. The two need to come together, right? So you need to have the critical mass of people and jobs next to transit to support transit, but it's also about what form the buildings in which those people and jobs are housed that's important. It's about creating the right environment, right? It's about, if you want people to ride transit, it's gotta be an attractive place. It's gotta be a comfortable place for people to come in order to use transit. And so the built form is one part of that, and that's the piece that we're addressing through this. Well, I believe that was addressed through Official Plan Amendment 321, and now we're further clarifying that through this amendment.
But to date, we have no commitment from the province for BRT.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, I believe there is a commitment from the province to build Dundas BRT. That process is ongoing, and it's being currently, it'll extend from Kipling Station in Toronto all the way out to Hamilton. And the focus is right now on Kipling, moving it through Mississauga. And so the next stage will be the Oakville corridor, or the Oakville portion, moving it from Mississauga into Burlington. So those projects are underway. And so it's already being built and invested in.
Do we know how long before it comes through Oakville?
I do not know off the top of my head the timelines for when it would come through Oakville.
Okay. So the report states that the apartment market has slowed down considerably. So how do we know that requiring 6-story buildings will actually encourage development and not delay it?
So as I said in my presentation, I completely appreciate that markets fluctuate. But this piece of the transect, right, where we've got the built form, the taller built form along Dundas to support transit is an important piece. and we can't risk losing that piece. And so the official plan looks longer term, and while, yeah, we're in a market right now where the market for apartment housing isn't there, we believe it will come back, and we need to ensure that that's the form that goes in along Dundas.
So do we know though how many potential housing units could be delayed or lost if we put this proposed bylaw in and landowners are not bringing in applications now?
So I feel we have room for housing to be developed in Oakville. These aren't the only lands in Oakville where housing can be built. So I'm not convinced that we would necessarily be delaying the delivery of housing. We're just ensuring that the housing that would be delivered here in the fullness of time is in the right form.
Okay. We haven't done a financial feasibility analysis comparing 6-story apartment buildings to townhouse developments, have we?
No, town staff have not conducted that study.
So we wouldn't know if that would work, that would be compatible.
Well, I will say that through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councilor, I will say this. I mean, we know that the mid-rise apartment building form does work along Dundas. We have many examples of where it's already been built. And so it does work when the market is right. Perhaps now is not the time, is what we've been hearing. But that's not to say the market won't rebound and there will be a market for these housing forms again, because they do work and have worked, and I believe will continue to work in the future.
But right now we're looking at more quantity over quality. One of the issues that we have in the north is we discuss complete communities and wanting to have enough schools, enough infrastructure, enough services. And I feel like what we're looking at is just creating so much density just to bring in this BRT. And we understand that transit is important and it's supportive, but we also seen that we are very reliant on cars, and north of Dundas, our permits are almost maxed out because although we have transit, people are still relying on cars. So I feel like we're going down this road where we're trying to encourage something, but at the risk of losing what we want Oakville to be in terms of quality of life. And so we're trying to bring in more of that quantity over the quality. And so I'm not sure if this is the way we go, but I'll hold my comments for now. Thank you, Mayor.
That brings us to Councillor O'Meara and then Councillor McNeice.
Thanks very much, Jeff. Just had a couple of questions. So I don't see Metrolinx has any funding and any capital projects at all for the Oakville portion of BRT. I know it's in the regional transportation document, but you know, we've all seen what's happened to the Kerr Street underpass. I mean, that makes no promises to anything that this is going to come. So it seems your entire presentation was premised upon we need to do everything we can to get a bus rapid transit system here. But what if it doesn't come? Like what if, you know, we're 20, 30 years out and this just doesn't happen, and now we have condos built in the sky and no bus rapid transit? I mean, are we putting the cart before the horse here?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. I don't believe we're putting the cart before the horse. I know that there has been work done on the Dundas BRT in Mississauga. So while I don't know the timeline, I believe it will continue to come towards Oakville. But part of ensuring that it does is making sure that we as the town are providing the right built form and environment for that transit, because then it becomes viable for both the province and the town to have that within the town. And as the transportation plan indicated, congestion is going to be a problem as we grow. And this is a vital piece of addressing congestion, because if we can get bus rapid transit on Dundas, for example, it provides another viable transportation choice for the residents, so that we don't continue to only provide one viable choice, for example, being an automobile, where everybody wants to go on the roads that we have, which the transportation plan has indicated. We're basically we've expanded the roads as much as we can. So we need to focus now on moving people in a variety of options, not just focusing on moving vehicles.
Okay, I've got that. You said that now's not the time for the market, but you believe the market will come back. So when you say the market, do you mean the condo market, the condo in the sky market is coming back? Where does that come from?
Mike, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, my comments come from the fact that markets fluctuate. So often we hit a trough and then it comes back, and I would expect that fluctuation may continue, and that we may see the apartment market housing coming back. When, I don't know, but I think it's important that that's the housing form that we provide on Dundas, and so it's important to uphold the policies for that vision along Dundas.
Okay, I mean, I believe a lot of the market was driven by speculator and investor driven investments here that weren't for people with houses, and I certainly hope that market doesn't come back, because I don't think it was good for the 43,000 empty condos that were in Toronto, and now we have governments buying them back because they're empty in different parts. So I really hope that part of the market doesn't come back. But I will ask. I've had conversations about densities and about stacked townhouses being able to accommodate the same density as 6 to 8 story condo buildings. So are we focused on a stories here, or are we focused on density? And why wouldn't we allow different forms of lower to the ground developments that might be more affordable but still achieve the same densities? Why do we have to hit an 8+4? What does that do for density when there might be other forms that we could use?
So as I said in my presentation, I believe building transit supportive communities is not simply a density equation. It's also about the built form, and mixed use buildings allow the opportunity to put ground floor retail uses adjacent to transit. And while I appreciate, that stacked townhouses do provide like what's being advertised as a larger family-oriented unit, I would hope that there would also be possibilities to do family-oriented units in a mixed-use apartment building as well. But then get the mixture of uses and also create a street environment that's comfortable for pedestrians and good for transit. So it's not just about density, and I appreciate that argument that, okay, look, we can provide the same density as potentially a low-rise or small mid-rise building, but I would argue it's also about the built form and the environment that we're trying to create.
Thank you.
Councillor McNeice.
Thank you. Through your worship. Further along the line of Councillor Mara and sort of the form there, I mean, I worry of going to just 6 up. It is going to be exclusively condominium apartment style with elevator shafts in the middle, hallways around. We had that one application that wanted to downzone and said they could get the same density of from a 14-story condo to a 4-story stacked town on their property, and they're currently before the OLT trying to downzone. So I just worry that we're shoeboxing ourselves into one product if we go up to 6, because clearly that's not going to be a townhouse form of any type. And then I have a question, maybe it's a legal question, because my understanding is that the OLT is just full of downzoning cases right now. And if we're upzoning to 6, are we not just asking for, cases before the OLT to line up, trying to go down to 4 or 3, or basically down to what the product is that people want right now? Are we not sort of running that risk? I'll just add while they prepare, you know, if we were to change it, I mean, you know, landowners don't like down zonings after the fact once they've been upzoned. So I just worry if we go up, it's gonna be hard to come down, and it's gonna, you know, take up a lot of staff resources and time before the OLT.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, I will say that OPA 321, which prohibited standalone townhouses adjacent to Dundas Street, already increased the expectation on those lands. And it was the intent of that policy that it would be mixed use and apartment buildings that would be built adjacent to Dundas Street. So the OPA tonight is not, in a sense, upzoning. It's more clarifying the policy that's already in effect.
Okay, but my understanding on the stories though is it was 3. We're saying minimum 6 is what's being considered tonight. Is that not true?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, that is correct.
Okay.
I would say that apartment housing forms, though, generally are not built at 3 stories, and they would exceed that 3-story minimum. So while the minimum is there for the townhouses, for example, on let's say the backside of the Dundas urban core, when townhouses are prohibited adjacent to Dundas Street, which is currently the case, an apartment building form would likely be proposed at 5, 6, 7, or 8 stories.
Okay, and if it were a townhouse form, I mean, there are forms that do accommodate commercial retail on the front. I hate to say the work-live units, but you know, they, who knows, maybe they make a comeback at some point, but there's sort of a time and a place for all products. And, you know, I think we sort of have to have some flexibility with the future being uncertain.
Thank you, Councillor. Anything else?
That's it for me.
Councillor Adams?
Thanks.
Thanks. I just wanted to clarify. So we already allow 6 stories in all of these cases, correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
So this is not an offering of additional height allowance. This is saying we actually want that minimum height. We don't want the 3-story. And specifically, we don't want the townhouse format, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. We already have some townhomes that are, you showed a picture earlier. What you didn't show, though, is what it looked like from the street.
Okay.
Is it appropriate for there to be air conditioning units on Dundas? Is that a good urban design to have air conditioning units being what everyone sees on Dundas?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, I would say that no, it's not an attractive urban design or feature from an urban design perspective to have on the front facing a major corridor like Dundas.
Have we ever done any counts of how many people sit out on the front steps on Dundas? I think the answer is close to 0.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, we have not done the actual counts.
So there's pretty much no urban feel, there's no activity happening in that stretch. Is that fair to say?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's a fair statement you could make. Yeah.
So it makes it difficult then to operate a transit system, is what you're saying?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
I think that's an important element here to understand. Where we have had townhomes put on Dundas and in some cases on Trafalgar Road, we're not having the kind of level of interaction with the street that I think we might want to have in a major boulevard space like that. And it makes it a much less livable space. I think that's the argument you're trying to make, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you clarifying that.
All right, for a second time, Councillor Shia and Councillor Nanda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's no question anymore, so I just want to share my comment. So tonight, I'm not in favor to support this report as presented. I understand the importance of the planning for growth along Dundas Street and supporting the future BRT. However, residents need to confidence that this kind of changes will be implemented carefully with the proper consideration of traffic, safety, parking, infrastructures, local business, and the quality of life. So I'm concerned that the proposed policy may move too quickly without enough clarity on how they will affect the people who live, work, and travel in this area every day. Growth is important, but growth must be done in a way that is responsible, balanced, and community-focused. We need to make sure that new developments support complete communities, not just density targets. For those reasons, I cannot support this report tonight. I would like to see more work done to address residents' concerns and ensure the plan truly reflects the needs of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Nando.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Burton. I also cannot support this report. I don't feel that enough work has been done to show that the community will get what they need. A clear example is that the Nergawa Urban Core was passed over a year ago, and we have yet to get a commitment from the province for the transit station that kept saying that had we passed the Nergawa Urban Core and with the density coming in there, that we would be provided with a transit station. We're not sure if that's actually gonna happen, and yet now we have condos that can go up to 18 stories, and that's very concerning for our residents, for traffic, for safety, and just overall quality of life and what a complete community is supposed to be. I feel, again, we are putting the cart before the horse. We're not sure when the BRT will come, if it'll come in time, and what our user base will actually be. And so for those reasons, and what my colleague said as well, I do not feel like I can support this at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I think at this time I should ask for a mover and seconder for the recommendation. Councillor Duddick and Councillor Giddings, thank you. Councillor Duddick, you have the floor.
Thank you. I totally appreciate where the councillors are coming from in regards to representing what they perceive to be their constituents' best interests. My concern is we have a comprehensive plan. And when we start going and gerrymandering that, where so many aspects of our official plan are affected, whether it's transportation or, in this case, a major arterial road is where you need that height. You need that to protect the residents in the back. It's no different than what we went through on Dorval when we had the Van Dyke properties done and then lowering it down, terracing it, for lack of a better word, it reminded me of a sort of sound wall of some form, okay? But it's also, and I agree with what Councillor Adams raised, nobody is going to want to sit on a front porch or a landing with a major road. And Appleby Line in Burlington is a perfect example. Across from the Restore, you go up there, nobody is out front, and they're right up against the edge of a very, very busy roadway. So I'm sorry, I do believe that we need to give some clarity and to not deviate from what the long-term comprehensive plan is that we have.
Thank you, Councillor Duddick. We have a delegation to call. Madam Clerk, could you call the delegation?
Thank you, Mayor Burton. Delegation is Rakinder Kalirai.
Welcome, sir. Council looks forward to your information. How can we help you?
Thank you, Mayor and councillors, for hearing me. I was actually in objection to this OPA 321 specifically around my property at 367 Dundas Street West, which is adjacent to Dundas and George Savage Road. Unfortunately, that property is not large enough to have a future development of 6 stories. There's no developer that would develop on that property because of the size. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to prepare for today. I just got the letter last week myself, so I apologize for my lack of knowledge of this, but I did want to throw an objection to this specifically for that property.
Thank you very much. Staff, do you have any advice for the gentleman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to the delegate. As staff, we're always more than happy to meet with property owners for the purpose of understanding any constraints on their property, as well as what the future potential could be on those. We're always available to have those conversations.
Be railroaded.
I recommend you take them up on their offer. You may find that you have opportunities you're not aware of.
Thank you. And I would mind a business card. I could then reach out to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councilors.
All right, I'll be supporting the proposal that's moved by Councillor Dudek and Councillor Giddings. This, in my view, is we're not doing something new here tonight. We're closing a loophole in what was our anti-sprawl official plan amendment back 10 years ago. And for that reason, I think it's crucial for that environmental reason, but it's also crucial for making sure that we qualify for the BRT. Councillor Elgar.
Mayor Bird, at the appropriate time, I'd ask for a recorded vote.
Of course.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor O'Meara, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm okay. I apologize.
All right. I see no other speakers. Madam Clerk, would you please call the vote?
Thank you, Mayor Burton. Councillor O'Meara?
Yes.
Councillor McNeese?
Yes.
Councillor Dudek?
Yes.
Councillor Chisholm?
Yes.
Councillor Haslett-Thiel?
Yes.
Councillor Giddings?
Yes.
Councillor Elgar?
Yes.
Councillor Longo?
Yes.
Mayor Burton?
Yes.
Councillor Noel?
Yes.
Councillor Grant?
Yes.
Councillor Adams?
Yes.
Councillor Lischina?
Yes.
Councillor Nanda?
No.
Councillor Shi?
No.
That carries.
Thank you, everybody. That carries. Council, it's 8 o'clock. You've been working a long time, and we have one more meaty item before us. That's 8.1, the recommendation report for 420 South Service Road East, and the staff recommendation of approval. I am going to suggest to you that everybody might benefit from a 10-minute break, and I'm not seeing any objections. I'm seeing some thumbs up, so I'll call it 12 minutes. How's that? There's a big crowd, and we might be a lineup for the restrooms. So 8:20, we'll resume. Thanks, everybody.
Recording stopped.
All right, we're back in session. Thank you, everybody. We have a presentation from Colin Westerhoff, the senior planner on this file. Mr. Westerhoff, I believe the room is eager to hear from you, and you have the floor.
Thank you and good evening, Mayor Burton and members of council. I'm here to present on the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications submitted by South Service Holding Corporation. The proposal relates to the phased development of the lands with residential and mixed-use buildings. The report can be found as item 8.1 on tonight's agenda, and the purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide a recommendation to council for a decision. So subject lands are municipally known as 420 South Service Road East. They're located on the south side of South Service Road east of Trafalgar Road, west of Chartwell Road, and north of the Metrolinx rail corridor. The applicant submitted an official plan amendment in November of 2024 that proposed the phased development of the land with a total of 16 towers that ranged in height to a maximum of 48 stories across 3 blocks, with 1 block reserved for a public park. The 2024 concept reflected the conceptual plan for the lands as laid out within OPA 70. A statutory public meeting for the application was held in February 2025, where the OPA application was introduced to council and the public. The applicant submitted a revised official plan amendment alongside a zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision in October of 2025. The revised applications proposed the phased development of the land with a total of 14 towers that ranged in heights to a maximum of 48 stories across all 4 blocks with an integrated park system. In April 2026, the applicant refined the maximum building heights based on comments received from the public, council, and staff to a maximum height of 38 stories. The reduced building heights are intended to comply with federal regulations for minimum vectoring altitudes. The lands are designated urban area and are identified as part of the Midtown Urban Growth Center and major transit station area on a priority transit corridor. These are elements of the regional urban structure and forms part of the hierarchy of strategic growth areas within the town. The lands are designated office employment in the Livable Oakville official plan. The applicant proposes to redesignate the lands to urban core in accordance with the adopted policies of OPA 70. The proposed amendment to the official plan maintains the goals and objectives of the Livable Oakville plan for Midtown Oakville and will help establish Midtown as a vibrant, transit-supportive, complete community. The proposed amendment and analysis of the application has been informed by the adopted policies of OPA 70. Staff finds that the proposed land use mix, housing options, height permissions, benefits to the community, and updated right-of-way requirements are consistent with the adopted direction of OPA 70. The lands are currently zoned under both the 1984 zoning bylaw and the 2014 zoning bylaw, as an appeal of the 2014 zoning bylaw remains outstanding. The lands are zoned for employment uses and temporary outdoor storage, which applies only to a portion of the lands. Staff have reviewed the application and the applicant's proposed zoning bylaw amendment that rezones the subject lands from MTE to MTE T6, or MTE and MTE T6 to MU4 with a special provision 452. The bylaw introduces regulations to set new minimum and maximum standards for building height and floor space index, introduces new regulations for built form requirements, minimum park area, minimum non-residential use requirements, and establishes minimum bicycle parking and maximum vehicle parking regulations. Further, the site-specific zoning introduces holding provisions that will be lifted in phases as the development proceeds over time. The holds ensure that the following matters are addressed: NAV Canada requirements, MTO, regional water and wastewater servicing requirements, conservation Halton, stormwater management requirements, transportation impact study, and infrastructure design and delivery requirements. While OPA 70 is not in effect, the adopted policies of OPA 70 are informative for the analysis of the proposal to ensure the applications meet the goals and objectives of the adopted policies for the Midtown Oakville growth area. Overall, the proposal implements the goals and objectives of the Livable Oakville plan for the Midtown growth area and reflects many of the adopted policies of OPA 70. The list on the screen includes a number of policy frameworks introduced through OPA 70 that are being carried forward through this application before council. Further, the adopted road right-of-way requirements for Midtown Oakville are being carried forward through detailed design will ensure that the appropriate size of roads will be constructed. OPA 70 introduced policy to enable the establishment of a community planning permit system within the town. The intent was to establish a streamlined permitting process and one window approach for the processing and permitting of development. The ability for the town to consider the adoption of a CPPS for Midtown or any other area is reliant upon the approval of OPA 70 by the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Since OPA 70 has not been approved, the CPPS remains in draft and will not apply to the subject lands. However, it has helped inform the proposed development and corresponding amendments. The proposal advances a number of qualifying in-kind community benefits that align with the draft CPPS bylaw and can be considered by council through the Community Benefits Charge bylaw. Some of these benefits include, but are not limited to, the conservation and preservation of cultural heritage resources, the remediation of brownfield lands, improvements to parks and parks facilities, and offering a range of housing tenures and ranges of affordability. Should the applications be approved, the phased development of the land will proceed through the typical development application processes in place that have proven to be successful in delivering good development in a timely manner. Through the review of the application, town staff were made aware of objections from NAV Canada regarding building heights within Midtown. As a result, staff have considered the concerns related to minimum vectoring altitudes, which restricts building heights, inclusive of any cranes needed during construction. An MVA is the lowest altitude which an air traffic controller may issue aircraft altitude clearances during routing of an aircraft. Buildings and construction cranes that exceed 237 meters above sea level would impact the MVA. Therefore, the application has been modified to reduce the maximum building height to 38 stories or 132.5 meters, which can comply with MVA requirements from NAV Canada. A holding provision has been included in Bylaw 2026-074 that requires the applicant to produce a letter from NAV Canada or Transport Canada prior to site plan approval that indicates the phase of development complies with the MVA for the area. This slide highlights the matters to be addressed that were raised by the public, council, and staff. These items have been thoroughly discussed in the staff report from pages 32 to 47. This slide shows the timeline of the applications for the subject lands. The boxes in red are meetings in which council will have an opportunity to consider applications and make a decision. As shown, council will have another opportunity to provide input on the draft plan of subdivision in the future. The subdivision application pertains to the creation of blocks of land for development, roads and parks, and will not deal with built form elements of the proposal. Built form matters will be further refined in advance through future site plan applications. In conclusion, staff put forth the following recommendation as shown for council's consideration. It is staff's opinion that the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications be approved to permit the phased development of the lands for a high-density residential and mixed-use community within the Midtown Oakville growth area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Westerhoff. Before we go to questions from council, I think it would be a good idea to hear from the delegations. Madam Clerk, would you call the delegations?
Thank you, Mayor Burton. The first delegation is Rick Snidel.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for your permission to speak after I had an administrative error in registering today. Greatly appreciated. I am Rick Snidel. I'm representing We Love Oakville, and I'm calling my short presentation, which will also introduce a couple of other members of We Love Oakville.
Mr. Snidel, could you just pull the microphone over so that people, having gone to the trouble to make sure you go first, let's make sure we hear you.
Have you got it? Have you got it?
That's great, thank you.
Okay, great. Just to let you know, this is a little bit unusual. Perhaps what His Worship is referring to is we are here because we're in favor of something, and we're going to support it. So, but we have a few caveats we want to bring to your attention. One of the issues that created the title of this presentation, A Tale of Two Midtowns, is that the two major developers in Midtown, one of whom has just applied their plan tonight, one of whom did not have to apply for permission to the town of Oakville, have created a disparity which we think is going to be an issue over the development of both of these projects, which will be a timely thing, 20, 30 plus years. So in the back of my mind, we're talking about what we appreciate about these South Service Road development, but what we're concerned about in the separate TOC project. So that's why we're here. The projects have two different sets of rules, and I think the town's going to have to deal with some of those discrepancies when people move in. People have different neighborhoods and wonder why in Midtown things are so different. So I bring that to your attention. I also want to bring to my attention, I have just found out that the NAVCAN 38-story reduction has now been affirmed, and both developers will have to conform with that. And I know there's been a lot of stuff going on about that, but if I drop a statistic about density or something like that, it has not been adjusted for reducing heights of any of these projects to 38 stories. I'm getting curious looks about that, but that's my understanding.
Well, if you want some friendly advice, you would simplify your problem if you just speak about the item in front of us tonight.
I shall do that. I shall do that. Okay. When we look at South Service Road, we are impressed by the design, the livability, and again, how different it in the east part of Midtown is from the west part of Midtown, which I think we'll be dealing with in the future. Rose Corp has acknowledged, as we heard tonight, aligning themselves with OPA 70, which I think is a major point of cooperation with the town and sort of a different approach to dealing with issues of zoning and issues of development, again, which will take point over a long period of time. I do wish to say, just again, with old statistics, the relative densities of the two developments are radically different due to the fact that TOC has slightly more units on 5 hectares than the South Service Road does on 11 hectares. Density refers to the number of people on the ground, and Rose Corp has delightful green space, parks, a main street with shops, and we call that livability. And again, this is part of our appreciation of the work that Rose Corp has done and ability to speak to all people who represent the community. I think I'm going to abbreviate this for some of my material and talk about the reason we're here is supporting Rose Corp. We've had no discrepancies or variations of issues from them. We want to make it very clear that a lot of our opposition in the past was to the TOC development, over which this body here really has no say and or participation. So that having been said, we thank the mayor and the council for their patience, analysis, and support while we went through all of these processes over the last couple of years. And in the interest of time, I'm going to turn over to our next presenter, who is Marian Richardson. And
Thank you very
unless there's any
much,
questions,
Mr. Snug.
okay?
Welcome, Ms. Richardson. Council looks forward to your information.
Good evening. My name is Marian Richardson. I'm a member of We Love Oakville, and I'm also a member of the Joshua Creek Ratepayers Association, or Residents Association. I'm standing in for someone else who couldn't come at the last moment, and I have a fairly long presentation that I'm going to try to abbreviate, and I get nervous in speaking in front of people, so just bear with me. The Rose Corporation, in our view, deserves credit in the approval journey so far by their collaboration both with the town and stakeholders groups like We Love Oakville. They will be able to manage their risks by building in phases and responding to market trends. However, in case of Oakville, the region and province, our collective risks are formidable due to the sheer complexity of the needs of all stakeholders. We need some kind of cross-vertical management of these risks to manage to a successful conclusion. I think we're all aware of examples of planning failures related to building development and associated infrastructure work, especially transportation infrastructure work throughout the province. I won't mention any names of projects, but I want to cover infrastructure funding and budget risks, execution risks, and in general risks to our taxpayers and all residents who need to live and work in this livable town. Once the application is approved, the central issue becomes delivery of hard and soft infrastructure required to support Midtown's growth. Midtown's infrastructure is already under significant strain and cannot absorb the combined impact of the TOC, other approved developments, and this proposal without major investment. While a comprehensive Midtown transportation plan was approved by Council in March 26, following extensive study and consultation. The issue is not the existence of a plan, but rather its implementation. Our primary concern is phasing and timing. Will critical transportation infrastructure be delivered in step with development, or will it lag behind occupancy and worsen already strained conditions? Residents are already experiencing increasing congestion, gridlock, and deteriorating GO train access. In fact, we're years behind in the delivery of overpasses and key roads to satisfy even the current state. Implementation will, in the near term, be driven by the TALK and 420 South Service Road developments. It's therefore essential that infrastructure delivery be tightly phased and aligned with these projects. Without enforceable sequencing, there is a real risk that the development could outpace infrastructure, undermining both mobility and the success of Midtown itself. Construction impacts must also be addressed. Intensified congestion along the South Service Road, the Trafalgar Corridor, and the GO Station risk gridlock affecting regional traffic, hospital access, GO connectivity. Oakville GO is already operating at capacity. What near-term actions well before 2035 and well before the full plan built out of the infrastructure 25 years from now could be accelerated to improve transit access? What are Metrolink's concrete commitments, timelines, and funding plans? Council should require a clear update from staff. Road infrastructure, as road infrastructure is built, who will manage the risks of intensifying the construction during the build? We also, and I'm going to just leave some things out here, just say the Midtown Transportation Plan identifies approximately $785 million in infrastructure costs, of which roughly 52% is expected to be borne by the town of Oakville, with the province through the Ministry of Transportation and Metrolinx picking up only 16% of this very large number. The developers are scheduled to pick up 23%, but it's not clear whether some of this is backstopped by the federal or provincial funding recently announced. This represents a significant obligation and potential burden on taxpayers. Growth is no longer paying for growth. While we have a capital fund as part of the budget, we have to continue to build other infrastructure outside the transit core area. We cannot allow these priorities to shortchange the needs of Midtown to support 420 South Service Road and the TOC developments. Council and residents need full transparency on the financial implications, including risks such as potential cost overruns, funding shortfalls, potential developer difficulties, and more importantly, risk mitigation strategies that need to be enacted if these risks materialize. Robust financial risk and risk assessment are not optional, they are essential. We need to collectively cut through the bureaucracy of getting things built with the region, the province and region ahead of when they're needed, not years after if we want to continue to deliver a livable town for all. So in conclusion, We Love Oakville is in support of the 420 plan. We just hope that we can put in the administrative infrastructure to make within the town to make sure the actual physical infrastructure comes to fruition on a timely basis to make the project successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk?
Next delegation is George Niblock.
Welcome, Mr. Niblock. We look forward to your information.
Thank you, and thank you for accommodating our comments this evening. I am George Niblock. I'm a director with OLRA, Oakville Lakeside Residents Association, and We Love Oakville. And I'm just doing a little presentation titled Livability, Community Design, and Complete Community Standards. As a collection of residents groups, We Love Oakville has been supportive of the redevelopment of Midtown in a manner that builds livability and delivers a complete community vision. Through our one-on-one meetings with Rose Corp, they have listened to our concerns and made improvements to their design to put a true focus on the creation of a design-forward, complete community. The Copenhagen-based landscape firm they brought in to design the parkland has resulted in a plan that will strengthen livability by connecting spaces within the 4 quadrants of the development with pedestrian bridges, integrating multiple levels, featuring trees, play spaces, and pedestrian-oriented streetscapes. The vision includes a high street focus for Davis Drive with lowered human-scale buildings fronting onto the streetscape and a vision for retail, restaurants, services for the community. Inspired by successful high streets, this section will have lay-by parking to help make this a destination as well as a walkable area for local residents. The old GE building is to be retained as a community space, a great adaptive reuse vision for a heritage structure. As noted in the staff report, while the CPPS bylaw remains in draft, this proposal delivers a substantial package of in-kind community benefits aligned with its intent. These include integrated parks and open space system exceeding legislative requirements, conservation of the cultural heritage asset, brownfield remediation, a pedestrian bridge, range of housing tenures, initially purpose-built rental buildings, later condominium, including affordable options, daycare facilities, office uses, and a commitment to sustainable building practices. The parkland proposal is for 2.3 hectares of parks and open space. This is very close to what OPA 70 would have envisioned for this site. This is a meaningful commitment that greatly contributes to the future livability of this development and of Midtown. This sits in stark contrast with the unacceptably small 0.7 hectare park space in the TOC proposal as approved by ministerial zoning order. My page 2 is not coming. Yeah. Including well-designed and meaningful size parkland in the plan means that this development will be a viable option for young families looking for homes in Oakville. Again, not something we can say for the TOC proposal. Livability will ultimately depend not just on planning, but execution. Parks, schools, community services for Midtown must be delivered in step with the population growth, not years behind. This underscores the need for comprehensive, integrated, and appropriately phased infrastructure planning. We emphasize the importance of creating a truly active and vibrant retail environment with restaurants, shops, services, and gathering spaces. This will not happen by osmosis. It requires deliberate planning, building on the experience of what has worked and what has not worked in downtown Oakville, Bronte, North Oakville, and beyond. In summary, we do support this proposal for its contribution to a vision for a livable community in Midtown. It is important to advance design-forward proposals that will benefit future residents in need of not just housing, but community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Niblock. You make me want to buy there.
Good.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. The next delegation is Jim Goodfellow, who is with us virtually.
All right. We can see him on our screens. Welcome,
Yeah.
Mr. Goodfellow. We look
Well,
forward to your comments.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And it's good to see all of you. And I apologize for not being able to be there in person, but it's still good to see you on the screen. I'm here tonight to representing Chartwell Maple Grove Residents Association, which is also part of We Love Oakville. And I want to just start by reiterating our support for the proposal that is being put forward. There's if I look at this thing, Mayor Burton, there's three ways that I sort of come to that conclusion. One is there's the content of the proposal. Staff have obviously done a much deeper analysis than we can ever do, but we would be totally consistent with the conclusions reached by staff. So that's the content. The second is the process that Rose Corp, they were open, engaged with us, listened. It was a two-way street. We learned a lot from them. We hope that they learned something from us too. So the process was good. And the third part was that I was really impressed with the management team. They looked like a competent, professional management team. So for those three reasons that were support. And Mayor Burton, I would also point out to just, you kindly gave me some time ago the Sherry Arndeston ladder for engagement. These folks score pretty well on that. So that was another piece. But the real issue that I'd like to raise with you that's before us is not just the approval of this proposal in the single application. It really is the development of Midtown, of which this proposal is part. And the challenge is as to whether this proposal will be delivered or whether Midtown will be delivered in a coherent and complete community, or whether it will be emerged fragmented and uncoordinated. Midtown is, we have all said, the largest and most complex urban transformation in Oakville history. This is a key part of it. Getting it wrong will have severe consequences. And the core of this fundamental the core of that I like to talk about is this fundamental problem, which is currently there is no shared vision for what Midtown is meant to become. The TOC advances one vision: build as high with as much density as you can. OPA sets out another vision: a balanced, human scale, livable community. The province has not approved the OPA vision. The TOC totally rejects it. And the proposal in front of you tonight is, as staff has pointed out, very closely aligned with the OPA vision, which we support. So moving forward with the development of Midtown is going to be a challenge. And the straightforward question is, how can Midtown be planned and developed coherently when there's no agreement on what it's supposed to achieve? Success will be measured not by unit count, and then let's remember, success will not be measured by unit counts and speed of construction. It'll be measured in the long term as to whether Midtown becomes a place where people want to live and be part of. So in practical terms, Midtown's future will be shaped by two large projects in the TOC and the 420 South Service Road. These are two large-scale, precedent-setting projects that will define what's going to follow in the immediate and probably longer term. And while the challenges are real, there is some, I think, reasons for hope. And one of them is that all the parties share actually a common interest. And the common interest is that we can get Midtown right and we can build it right, then everyone's going to benefit. So if we can get people pulling in the common direction, everyone should win. But achieving this is going to be a big challenge. It's a big challenge so far because one of the parties just won't have anything to do with it. But it's a foundation on which we should build and we should strive to build. And what we have experienced with the Rose Corp executives is the potential that's there when you can actually try and achieve that common interest. And you have a robust engagement and you actually have a two-way conversation, and you probably, it'll feed with solutions that may be better than each of the parties could have come up with on their own. So, so that's the concern. Let me also just now say there's 2 or 3 things that I think council and your successor council, because I recognize that we're talking to you tonight, but you know, council will turn over, and a new group will take your place, and we'll have this challenge. So here's a couple of things to think of. Number 1, we must continue to strive for a shared vision for Midtown. We have to, you know, I'm thinking of Lincoln's quote, you know, that a divided house cannot stand on itself. I haven't got the quote right, but I think you know. We must continue to work for a shared vision of Midtown and something that we can get all of the people. It'll be tough, but I think we need to continue to strive for it and push the province, you know, that this is a necessary goal. But that's not going to happen without leadership. So critical success of moving this agenda forward over decades, a program that's going to take decades to achieve, is going to be who's the leader here? Who is the executive within the town that is going to actually drive the Midtown, live, breathe, and own it and move it forward? What kind of support mechanism it needs to be put in place? Something like a Midtown Transformation Office. Now, this is kind of a corporate model where major transportations, you know, large corporations will usually set a very senior executive to own it on the management principle of one throat to choke. So there's somebody that's accountable, a fixed point, and then set up a transformation office that brings all the stakeholders together to achieve this. Something like that you should be thinking about, I think, is to help coordinate. Then there's the financial reality. Marion has addressed that. I would say, I must admit, in the transportation plan, when I saw the town number and 52%, I sort of scratched my head and said, well, previously we had talked about the issue that, you know, this is going to be funded mainly through development charges. So and I recognize this is very fluid, but I do have, Mayor Burton, a suggestion for you to think about as you go forward with your budgeting and plan, which is in the 10-year capital plan. Maybe it's time now to segregate out a Midtown component so that we can start understanding the long-term costs, and which will be adjusted as you go for years, but that may be one way of starting to educate and understand what is the potential burden that could be headed our way. And let me close now with just one final thought, and you know, that we're having this discussion, we're planning, you know, and we're approving this project, and we're talking about the development of Midtown during a period of unprecedented market uncertainty that's been talked about. The real estate market is undergoing one of the most significant corrections in decades, and there's no guarantee that the market that emerges will look like the market that went into it. And I think, as Councillor McNeice, I share the view that I sure hope that there's parts of that market that we had before that is going to get eliminated in the correction. So the market that comes out here is going to be no guarantee it's going to look like the what, and there's no guarantee that the strategies of the players, the strategies that worked pre-crash, are going to be the strategies that will be successful post-crash. So all of that says is I really think, as you think of going forward, there is a real imperative for putting in a solid risk monitoring and mitigation plan and strategy so that council, management, residents, stakeholders can understand the risks and how they're changing. This is not a one-shot deal. This is something that is dynamic and that you can understand in the public. We have a shared understanding of, you know, the risks that are changing, emerging, and what's the management and mitigation strategies that are being put in place. So, in conclusion, this is not just about approving an application. I think we must think it in the context that this is a part of the overall development of Midtown. There's some very positive things with this application, content-wise, process-wise, and with the people that are behind it. We want to make sure that the Midtown, that both this project and Midtown creates a long-term asset for the town and not a long-term liability. So,
Mr. Goodfellow, thank you very much for your remarks. Are you
I must be 10 minutes because I don't see a sign.
Well, you're a little bit over, but I'm indulging you, but I'm hoping that you're
No, I'm done. Let me just I have a closing line, so let me give you my closing line. Here's
always
the
a
message.
fan of a closing line.
Okay? The closing line is get the vision right, put the right leadership and structure in place, monitor and manage the risks, or the risks will manage Midtown. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goodfellow, very much. People are trying to applaud you here. I don't know if you can hear it. Madam Clerk, would you call the next delegation, please?
Next delegation is Richard Morowitz.
Mr. Morowitz, welcome. Council's looking forward to your information.
Thank you, Mayor Burton. I'm Richard Morowitz. I'm a resident of Southeast Oakville. I am not representing a residents association, but I am speaking on behalf of myself, Bruce Galloway, Jack Mundy, and several others. My background is I'm a retired KPMG restructuring partner. I've had a lot of experience in assessing the viability of real estate development projects over the years and dealing with restructuring of real estate related failures, particularly in the 1990s. So I know a little bit about real estate development, not a lot, but I have read the report dated June 17th of the Planning and Development Department, which is thorough and complete. It's been very well done. My comments will provide an overview of my summary. I'm not going to repeat what's already been said, particularly regarding risk management. I want to start by saying we are fully supportive of the applications filed by Southeast Service Corp, which I'll refer to as the Rose Corp. The background to reaching this position follows. From the outset, Rose Corp has been transparent and has been cooperative with ward councillors and interested parties. Our group attended 2 sessions in March and June with Rose Corp, together with ward councillors and representatives from the resident associations. The Rose Corp presentations were well done, well planned, and very helpful to our understanding of their plans going forward. Now, Rose Corp actually, to my surprise, even took us through a very high-level review of the underlying assumptions of their business model for the project, and that's typically confidential, but they shared this information with us, responded to questions. Now, on balance, the assumptions underlying the business model. They're not unreasonable, albeit there are issues still to be resolved as the project moves forward over the next several years. Rose Corp senior management has been respectful of concerns and issues raised. They have demonstrated credibility and an intention to develop the lands in a responsible manner consistent with the town's vision for Midtown. I further understand that Rose Corp anticipates lots of public consultation over the years to come. So in our view, Rose Corp has gone about their applications the right way. They've taken the high road. This is in sharp contrast to the talk fiasco, the resulting distrust of the developer, lack of transparency of Infrastructure Ontario, a divisive town council, and widespread opposition from residents. But thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morowitz, for raising those points.
Thank you.
Are there any other individuals here tonight who'd like to share information? Madam Clerk?
Yeah, we have one last delegation, Terry Murphy.
Ms. Murphy, welcome.
Good evening, and thank you very much for this opportunity. Tonight, I am here to ask you to please continue to advocate for the housing Oakville needs. It's a bit unfortunate that the word family does not appear, or school, in tonight's recommendation. Remembering that at full build-out, Midtown, with its massive population, was designed with only 2 elementary schools because of the planned demographic. Page 4 of tonight's recommendation states, this application contributes to the pledge for more housing and helps address gaps identified in the town's housing needs assessment, including the limited range and availability of unit types. Page 11 states, Halton's planning vision for a healthy community is designed to minimize the stress of daily living and meet the lifelong needs of residents with a full range of housing opportunities. Over the past month, I need not tell you, but Financial Post articles by planning experts and real estate professionals have headlined Bloodbath for Sellers, Toronto's Condo Apocalypse, and reported sales is down 75% with 20,000 unsold units. Echoing CMHC, the Toronto Region Real Estate Board added that the GTA market is investor-driven, with 75% of Toronto's condos owned by investors, not the people who need places to live. Research firm Urbanization says inventory hit a record high in the first quarter of 2026, with just 246 units sold in the 7.1 million populated GTHA. No new condo projects were launched in a full quarter. On June 25th, a planning expert and industry veteran argued in the paper that the advantages of increasing development near transit conceal fundamental demographic disparities. Now, I know this is what we have, but demographic disparities, the needs of families. Decades of research on transit-oriented developments and recent data from the Canadian Urban Institute reveal housing near transit attracts smaller, younger households who prefer to rent. They are 38% more likely to be under 35 and 63% more likely to live alone. More than half are tenants/investors. Increasing housing near transit suits small households and renters, but won't address the needs of families and does not eliminate the need to construct millions of new homes for growing families, unquote. Why do people/families move to Oakville? Because in these authors' words, quote, suburban housing is cheaper when normalized by occupied space, more people living in one unit, including multi-generational families. The disparity in average transportation expenditure between suburban households in the GTA and those residing near transit is virtually eliminated when expenditures are adjusted for household size. People want places, home to long-term residents with similarly aged children who are likely to grow up together, attend the same schools, and play on the same hockey rinks and soccer fields, end quote. This is in sync with the Tollins website, which advertises Oakville as one of the most coveted residential centres in Ontario, thanks to great neighbourhoods, quality schools, a full-service hospital, and proximity to parks and trails. A premier destination for families seeking more space, family-friendly parks, safe neighbourhoods, a balanced lifestyle. While the projected density of this development, compared with the TOC, is much lower, and while it is hoped that the first phase will include purpose-built rentals in a tower shorter than 30 stories, it still concerningly estimates 2 residents per unit, like the TOC. Despite the real merits of this proposal, we know the critical concerns about the infrastructure, which has been brought up tonight, from stormwater and transportation to schools and essentials like police and emergency services. We anticipate the huge investment and coordinated planning required to upgrade the already severe gridlock, overtaxed GO station, and strained infrastructure involving multiple levels of government. And this is worrying, given Metrolinx's unclear commitment and OPA 70's 18-month stasis at Queen's Park. What governance, planning, phasing, and accountability will protect taxpayers? But equally, and perhaps more important, is that people get the homes they need, not units that sit empty. Not good for the developers either. Ontario buyers are increasingly choosing larger units as financial realities, lifestyles, and demographic shifts reshape markets. Previously, small condos attracted investors due to the high rental activity and rapid appreciation, but that's no longer the case with vacancies, price drops, and rising maintenance costs. COVID changed everything. An article in today's Post focusing on choices and employment crises facing youth states the job market changed entirely. The office job moved into the home. Companies are saving by not paying for office space. During the peak condo years, buyers gave up size for a downtown location and lower upfront costs. Prices and skyrocketing maintenance fees mean families, remote and hybrid workers, and even investors now want less financial risk, as well as units with multiple bedrooms, room for office space and storage, parking, and outdoor space. As households mature, and the country needs them to, they require extra bedrooms, good school access, safer communities, and outdoor space for children. Markets that offer larger, affordable units attract those who are priced out of detached housing but need practical long-term living arrangements. With larger units suitable for families becoming increasingly rare across Ontario and affordability pressures and changing lifestyle needs increasing, it is creating a very strong demand. So when the subdivision discussions come up, I ask you to please consider this. For many, the decision is no longer simply about owning property, but satisfying their family's real space and living needs. An Angus Reid poll just released reveals that when Canadians between 18 and 44 were asked to name their ideal family, they reported an average of 2.05 children. They need to be able to have places to live so that they can have these children. Thank you for your advocacy for the livable character of Oakville as a whole, and for your deep consideration about the kind of housing young people and families really need. Good night, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Murphy. Are there other members of the public with comments for council? Seeing none, I'll confine it to table. Chair recognizes Councillor Hazard-Thiel.
Thank you, Mayor Burton. Several of the delegations talked about phasing and risk and cost, and some of those are questions specifically for staff, but we do have Rose Corp here tonight, and I think it would be beneficial to show just a few slides around how they intend to phase and maybe some of those massing questions, if we could just indulge them just for a few minutes. And I'm not sure which one of you wants to be on the hook, but.
You get 2 for 1. My name is David Mackay. I'm a registered professional planner with MHBC. And I'm Angie Osmond. I'm from Allies and Morrison Architects for Rose Corps.
So, Angie, why don't you take them through the design aspects and we can go from there.
So we were commissioned by Rose Corps in February earlier this year, and we have taken and advanced the design beyond to site plan detail to show how the parameters that have been governed within the OPA and ZBA can be realized. If I can advance my slides. Oops. I need to. Yeah. Is that okay? So the vision actually comprises of three key features. A social spine, which is Davis Street being illustrated here, which illustrates a vision to incorporate a variety of heights of typology of buildings, human-scaled buildings with active front streets. And then to the arterial road, also activation to the parkland, as well as to the pedestrian bridge, really seeing a variety that will create a vibrant and thriving community with livable density. And then within Block 1, there is a mix of both parkland and low-rise as well as tall buildings mixed in together, so it's complete at every phase. And so within that strata park, you're not able to see this full image as it's governed by the prompts of the text, but you will be able to see both parkland above and below within the block. And so in terms of phasing, Councillor, to your question, if I just advance my slides, through those design principles of having a lively high street and one that actually responds to two different conditions of both tall and low rise, and as well as articulating within the vision special buildings that actually anchor the vision, we see that sense of a mix of both tall buildings and mid-rise and low buildings around that vibrant main street of Davis Street. We see that being phased over 4 phases, as I said, complete at every stage. The first phase being in the northwest corner with its own green space, and then to look forward to a second phase in the northeastern corner, also will complete with its parkland, and then the third phase in the southwest, and then to complete it all, the southeast. And so each of the phases comprises of both low, mid, and tall typologies, as well as ample green space. And that is how we see our vision of the project coming together. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much for sharing that. So for clarity, completed every stage. So when you come to go to subdivision and ultimately site plan, there's an evolution that will occur of this project. Have I got that correct?
Correct.
And you had, not that you have time tonight to take us through it, but I did want to acknowledge you spent a considerable amount of time looking at the materiality of what you want Main Street, which is Davis Street, or Davis Road, to reflect about Oakville. And I wanted to thank you for that, because you had a very short period of time, and yet you clearly thought about the elements of heritage and those pieces. So we look forward to that presentation the next time we see you.
Thank you, Councillor. We did study very carefully Oakville's beloved Main Street, and we adopted the architectural character of those elements within the project and the vision that we see here. Thank you, Councillor.
Very much.
Thank you, Councillor.
Can I ask my questions now of staff?
Yes.
Thank you. So I just wanted to refer to the CN letter that we received. Could you just confirm for us, does it change anything in regards to what's being proposed?
Through you, Mayor, to the councillor, it does not change anything.
And how does it affect that there's a park, I don't know if the staff can bring it up, but in the layout, the parkland that is at the bottom by Cross, that is far enough distance, we don't have any, there's no conflict here with what CN is saying.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, as we advance the file through detailed design in the draft plan of subdivision, CN will be circulated again. They were circulated on all of these applications, and they will provide those comments. And I haven't seen comments to date that indicates that that parkland is too close to that rail corridor. It is separated by a large collector road as well. It creates a bit of separation distance, and then there is still room available on the north side of that Metrolinx rail corridor. That is something that we will continue to explore with CN and Metrolinx through the plan of subdivision.
Okay, thank you very much for that. My other question is, it might be for the commissioner or the CAO. So some of the delegates have talked about the concern about implementation and how this is all going to come to life. And we know we have a master transportation plan. We know we have the designing Midtown plan. Could you just share a few words to address that as this project starts to move forward, you know, is there a Midtown transportation team? How can you give some confidence to people that, you know, we're going to make some progress now?
Sure, Councillor. Through you, Mr. Mayor. There has actually been a Midtown implementation team for years. There has been a program office for which Sibel was the manager. We are continuing to evolve the shape of sort of the work program around Midtown based on where we're at in that continuum. And it has been focused a lot lately on studies related to implementation, transportation, water, wastewater, that kind of study work. So that is what we're very involved in now, with a lot of reports, the remainder of those reports expected to come in the next couple months.
All right, thank you very much for that. I had one other question for the actual developer, and it was regarding the concern that was raised by a delegate around the mix of unit types and sizes. And I know that that's not the OPA and the zoning amendment, and I'm appreciative that Colin had spent an incredible amount of time making sure we understand what is in the approvals tonight. But could you just speak to, you know, where is the development at in terms of your thoughts around determining that mix of units, size of units, and that request for family-sized units?
Thank you. Through your worship. So what we've looked at is a mix of 65% smaller units and 35% larger units. And that's a common mix to establish the dynamics for the financing and for the study work that we've got involved. As the projects, the individual phases move forward, further refinement through market study will determine that mix of tenure as well as the sizes of units. What we anticipate, based on discussions with my client, is that the first phase, which will be a rental building, will have probably a slightly higher mix of 2 and 3 bedroom units, probably closer to 40 to 50%. Again, that detailed work is ongoing. And that's also, you know, again, rental versus condominium ownership traditionally has been geared towards that more livability and the space function versus, as people have said, you know, small units that can appreciate in value very quickly. That's not the intent here. So we're going to continue working with town staff through the process of the site plan and deliver that project. And a lot of that is dependent on the marketed portions as well as the various financing components and the requirements of those financing mechanisms. So needless to say, we're continuing to work on it, and we are looking at this point, a target for much more family-friendly units, at least in this initial phase, and then as things progress over time, probably a lot more overall.
Thanks very much for those additional comments. I'll let my council colleagues have any comments before I do my final comments. Okay.
Councillor, you have the floor.
Okay.
Councillor, you have the floor.
Okay, well, Mayor Burton, I'd be pleased to move the recommendation tonight. It has been a really interesting journey. And I want to start by thanking the planning staff for their excellent work. Colin, you didn't disappoint. It was a complicated task, and I'm sure you spent some late nights, and I know you spent some weekends trying to make this come through. But you didn't just give us a recommendation report. We know that you put the time in with your colleagues, looking for ways for it to align with OPA 70, and that is very much appreciated. I want to thank Sam and your team, both for being here tonight. You had some choices to make when you decided to build in Oakville, and you chose to engage. You actively listened, and I vividly remember our first meeting. We shared with you our thoughts on Midtown and about creating a truly livable community. Yes, you met the real Janet. And unbeknownst to us, you left, and then you went on a journey to explore other urban communities and consider what could be possible. And when you assembled this talented team, Angie, Rusmas, and all the rest, you dramatically changed the conversation. And you went from a collection of very tall buildings, which personally didn't lack very much soul, to a vision for a vibrant, high and mid-use, mid-rise urban neighborhood. And I frankly was blown away. I had lost faith that anybody actually listens. Your willingness to collaborate is noteworthy, as is the significance that you're proposing a community that reflects key attributes of Oakville: our parks and trails, our vibrant commercial areas, our sense of community connection, respect for heritage, and the importance of creating places where people actually want to spend time. So for many residents that you've engaged with, the evolution of this proposal has been a welcome light during what has been some difficult years of uncertainty. The development of this development is obviously a critical piece of the vision for Midtown, and no pressure, but we're counting on you. And you know me well enough by now that I will continue, as long as I do sit in this chair, to keep asking you to ensure your buildings have homes for families of all sizes and stages, are child-friendly, that sustainable practices that occur, that stand the test of time, and that beautiful green spaces that Rasmus introduced us to all bring people together. We look forward to that final version. We know that there's more to come. And I think what I've learned is this is reinforced for me is that the best developments are not remembered because they're the tallest or the fastest, or that they maximized every hectare of land, nor can they be measured by the number of units you can squish onto the site. What we understand is that, and we do understand, thankfully to you, because you shared the pro forma, that developments need to make financial sense and be viable. So thank you for sharing. Ultimately, success needs to be measured by whether people choose to rent or buy, and in years from now, are they proud to call it home? And this shows promise, which is why I'm pleased to support it tonight. Until OPA 70 is approved, the future of Midtown will continue to be shaped through individual applications. We know that's not ideal, but perhaps other developers will seek to collaborate and embrace as you have. And Sam, I remember you saying something about legacy. And I believe what you've left and allow us to do is a legacy. So pleased to move it, Mayor Burton.
Thank you very much. Can I look for a second? Councillor Giddings, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Further to Councillor Janet's words, for Rose Corp, thank you for the proposal that is before us this evening. We appreciate the time that you spent with staff, with Councillor Janet and I, and especially with our residents. You opened up your books, you opened up a lot of time for them. The evening and weekend and early morning Zoom calls with your overseas partners were certainly appreciated. Most importantly, we appreciate that the proposal that's before us is aligned with OPA 70. And so for that, we give thanks. In terms of the speakers this evening, I'd like to thank all of you for coming out. And based on some of your phrases, I can't say it any better. The concept and design are thoughtful, innovative, and aligned with OPA 70 and our vision for a complete, livable Midtown community. We have been impressed by the applicant's openness, transparency, and willingness to engage meaningfully with staff, councillors, and the community. This collaborative approach stands in stark contrast to the province's TOC process, marked by secrecy, confidentiality agreements, top-down directives, and a total disregard for local input. The difference is not procedural, it goes to the heart of good planning and building public trust. A successful Midtown will not be defined by building heights and density alone. It will depend on creating a vibrant human environment. We're fortunate to have caring, involved, and hardworking residents with us this evening, and residents, organizations, and associations that continue to support us and council. And you continue to make a difference, and for that, we thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giddings. Anyone else? I'd like to call for a recorded vote just for the ceremony of it. And I would also like to offer a remark directed towards Rose Corporation. I believe you've set an inspirational example for others to follow in terms of your consideration of and your respect for Oakville's vision for our future, which is fully, I stress, fully within the parameters of Ontario's Provincial Planning Statement 2024. And I say that to, in my own way, mark the contrast between what you've proposed and what we've seen from others. I will predict bravely here that you will be in the ground and successful if many buildings of yours long before they ever begin to build one on the other side of town, because I don't believe that that's actually viable. So thank you for your respect for our town. Madam Clerk, would you call the vote?
Thank you, Mayor Burton. Councillor O'Meara?
Yes.
Councillor McNeese?
Yes.
Councillor Duddick?
With thanks, yes.
Councillor Chisholm?
Yes.
Councillor Haslett-Thiel?
Absolutely.
Councillor Giddings?
Yes.
Councillor Elgar?
Yes.
Councillor Longo?
Yes.
Mayor Burton?
Yes.
Councillor Knoll?
Yes.
Councillor Grant?
Yes.
Councillor Adams?
Yes.
Councillor Listjana?
Yes.
Councillor Nanda?
Yes.
Councillor Shi?
Yes.
Carries.
Thank you, everybody. Is there any new business that council would like to bring forward of a congratulatory or notice of motion or condolence nature? Okay. Are there any requests for reports? All right again. Well then, are there two of you who'd like to give me a motion for consideration and reading of the bylaws? Councillor Longo and Councillor Duddick, I've got you, and I will just, Councillor Duddick, were you wanting to speak or just moving? Okay, I took you right the first time. Thank you. Then is there any objection to the consideration and reading of the bylaws? There being none, they are considered read and passed. And this has been a bit of a historic evening, ladies and gentlemen. We had a developer come to town and actually listen to us. That's worth remembering. Thank you, everybody. Our meeting is over.